Chapter 30. Fear and Boredom. I was never so bored in my life as that Christmas. I didn't have any friends and felt detached from them anyway. It would have been better if I had connected, but I didn't. I just withered on the vine the whole month. Mother was fine with this. For fun, we could always go down to my brother Richard's and skate. He had a farm pond at his house, and he created a hockey rink every year for his boys in the community to skate. He had lights and nets and lots of skates. He collected skates and kept them sharpened so any kid or adult could come and have an evening of fun. As the boys were getting older, Richard and them joined some beer leagues over to Saginaw. Most beer leagues skate near or after midnight. Late at night, they would pack up and go play a hockey game over to Saginaw, and they got to know some of the other skaters pretty well. I found this funny because most of the other skaters were black, and my brother was a country bumpkin who functioned a lot like other white people who live in the country. I'm hoping you get my drift. So I thought this was pretty worldly of him and was actually quite impressed. Over time, Richard and the boys told the city kids about their farm pond and the hockey rink. Saginaw boys are fairly intrigued and agree to come out to the country for some hockey the next Saturday night. I remember thinking, you're going to come out to the country in the dark and skate on a farm pond with my brother? Oh, they're brave motherfuckers for sure. Richard understood their hesitation and poked at their apprehension constantly. He found it a fun game. I don't know if they enjoyed the game as much as he did, but they did have fun playing hockey, and the boys from Saginaw are fairly impressed with the setup. None of them had played outdoors before, so it was a real treat. Well, Richard wasn't done with them yet. As the kids started to pack up, Richard said there was one more job to do. At this point, he grabbed a chainsaw from the edge of the pond and started it up, revving it loudly and piercing the quiet of the farm. All eyes are like saucers. He took that chainsaw running and revving over to the deeper side of the pond and cut a nice big hole. Then he showed the boys a stack of white buckets laying in the snow and motioned for them to get them and bring them over to the hole. He told them, hey, now we have to Zamboni. They started to laugh and gladly helped recoat the rink. It took quite a few buckets and was a fair amount of work. I'm sure they laughed all the way back to Saginaw, but I don't think they ever came back again. I was starting to settle down a bit at college, but still felt awkward. One of my problems was clothes. Mother sent me with a bunch of polyester pants and tops, which would have been great if I had been one of my boring roommates. Mother's also bought me a coat that I hated. It was quite formal and didn't match anything else in my wardrobe. I had wanted a gray flowing coat that Mother couldn't see working. She told me several times to pick the coat I wanted, but I didn't and instead picked the coat she wanted and sold it for $20 as soon as I got back to campus. But then I had no coat. Smooth move, X-Lax. Luckily, it was a mild winter and I made it through with a sweatshirt and heavy shirt. I was looking around campus and started to see how the other kids dressed. Hippies were gaining traction, and their clothes fit my poor ass just fine. Old blue jeans, plaid shirts, paisley Indian prints, no bras, and no shaving. This took care of a lot of problems. I didn't have a way to shave, and I only owned one bra and a bunch of jeans and plaid shirts. All I had to do was get a paisley shirt, and I was in a group. I loved the idea because my family is not and never would be part of this group. I was tearing away, slowly, painfully away from the country life. I was still not thinking about what I wanted, but I was thinking about what I didn't want. I call this driving down the road looking out the rearview mirror. Not super handy when creating a future. I was just starting to look up and see the world differently. City kids might not be so bad. Maybe city kids had a clue. I ran into another girl from Kingston sitting in a hallway one day looking really depressed. I had not seen her yet on campus, and we were not close friends in Kingston. She was from a farming family, and her dad was quite domineering. Her mother spoke very softly and stayed in and maintained the home as her primary responsibility. Her brother had a brown-spotted saddle horse that he used in the country fairs and parades. He had gone to college, so this girl knew something of the situation. That she was not happy. I talked to her for a few minutes and realized that she was headed home to Kingston. You would have thought that we would hold some camaraderie and help each other. But instead, I felt like I needed to run. I was not going home come hell or high water, and I was lonely enough that at points it sounded good. I knew this was her road, not mine. If I stopped to help her, I might get sucked in. She was drowning, and I did not want to be her life preserver at my expense. I felt bad, but I was developing a small sense of self-preservation, and I did not want to lose it. My second semester in my freshman year must have gone smoothly because I don't really remember much. As the summer rolled around, I feared moving home and started looking for a place to rent. I should have found a friend first. My roommates graduated, the one married, and they all returned to their hometowns. I didn't actually know many people, as getting through the first year of college was challenging enough for me. I rented a house really close to campus, and luckily enough for me, it was furnished. It was $90 for the whole summer. I moved in, but it was not comfortable. I looked for a job, but only half-heartedly. I was lost. All I knew was what I didn't want. One day, Mother called and said she got me a job at the local grocery store in Kingston for the summer. I needed the money, so I agreed, and she agreed to come and get me. Oh, was that painful to move home. But I did enjoy the job and started hanging out a little with my high school friends. For entertainment, we returned to drinking and driving. 4 boys picked me up one Sunday afternoon, and we head off to the Clifford Bar. Mother always said the town of Clifford was smart and stayed in an unincorporated village, and the federal government helped them out more than Kingston, which had incorporated. When we got to Clifford, my friend Larry parked on a cement skirt with a really faded sign that said no parking, but, it was sold. We decided to ignore it. Anyway, the owner was a friend of my dad's, and he was happy to see us. We drank for several hours and played pool and pinball. It was great to be in a bar again with my friends. When we left, we discovered the car had been forcibly dragged halfway into the street. There were solid screech marks from the tires, and this is really hard on the transmission and wheel system. My friend was pissed, but what can we do? We decided to head out to Silverwood and drink at that bar for a while. There were only back roads there, so we felt safe if a little tipsy. But the state police did make it out there once in a while, and one was actually waiting for us. He knew about the parking problem, and he guessed pretty well that we would head out to Silverwood next. Unbeknownst to me, the boys had bought a 1/4 pound of weed. They had divided it up into lids and stashed it under the front seat of the car. Each was packed nicely in a baggie and taped shut. The bag should have stayed under the front seat, but that would be too easy. They had 7 bags of trouble sliding out from underneath the seat with a cot behind us, and my friend the driver was retrieving them and handing them back to us in the back seat. We were shoving them under the front seat as quickly as he passed them back to us. This went on until we knew the cop was walking up to the window. I kicked the last one under the seat just as he approached us. My friend rolled down the window and asked, "Can I help you, Orsifer?" We started to laugh. I knew I was toast. My friend's chin was below the window, and I could see he was drunker than I realized. The officer asked us all our names and then asked us where we were headed. One of the boys said Silverwood, and the cop says, "Silverwood Bar?" We all knew it was the only thing open in Silverwood, so we had to say yes. He says, "I know they serve coffee there. Go get some." Then he allowed us to leave, and we headed to Silverwood and got coffee. We fell in the door of the bar laughing, and the bartender made us a new pot of coffee while we retold the story. The rest of the summer was uneventful. My job at the grocery store was fine, and I enjoyed the townspeople in their daily lives. My boss was a bit of a drinker and would often sleep in the office all day and then head out to the bar about 3. He slowly drank up the place. He did get the message about the personal care product being over the freezer and the need for them to be moved. He moved them to the diaper section, which was worth a groan by all the women, but it was still better than over the freezer for sure. I moved into a different dorm second semester and started meeting new people. I bought an Indian paisley print shirt that was pretty long, but not as long as a skirt. I started wearing it with short shorts and getting a lot of attention, which I enjoyed. One day, there were some protests on campus, so I thought I'd go spy the action. I had on my paisley shirt and my jute sandals and headed out to the student lounge. It was mainly empty, so I thought about going across the street to the library. Oh, I had good timing. I came out just in time to see a boy jump on the hood of the governor's car as the caravan was passing out front. I realized the governor's visit was why there was protests on campus that day. He faced the windshield, pounded his chest, and then jumped off the car heading into the crowd. He had on a white jacket with blue piping, blue jeans, and tennis shoes. I have a good memory, don't I? No. Turned out to be a future friend, and we laughed about this incident periodically. The cops looked and looked for a kid with a white jacket and blue piping, but his friends had taken the jacket away from him immediately and got it out of there. The cops had no centralized database, so it took them quite a while to figure out who had jumped on the governor's car. But eventually, they did figure it out. With no pictures or video and no one to be witnessed, the cops' hands were tied. But later, much later, Nelson broke a parking gate or arm. The ones made out of 2x4s that get sawn halfway through, so if you break the wooden arm, it does not damage the equipment. Now, if he had been a blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl, nary a word would have ever been said. But this was Nelson, and they were hot to get Nelson. They arrested his ass, threw him in jail, and fined him $500. This was way beyond the infraction, but his friends helped him gather the money, and unbeknownst to the cops, it further strengthened the community that they feared. The community is the same group that took over the RCT building in 1967 and got ROTC kicked off campus. ROTC is the recruiting arm of the military, and the kids saw no reason for them to be on campus recruiting men for the Vietnam War. We still had the draft, and that terrorized the boys enough. Every year they would do a draft drawing by birthdays. Each day of the year was assigned a draft number, and they drafted per this list. If your birthday was drawn first, you were drafted first. If you were in college with good grades, you might be able to apply and get a deferment. But you better have good connections and good grades. They like to draft college kids and put them in charge of a unit. If you had just a semester of college, they would give you a unit and send you out front. Some men enlisted at the last possible moment to get a better position than the drafted man. I had a friend get caught up in this war under just these circumstances. He was sent to Vietnam and put in charge of a group of younger boys. The year was 1969. He was to take his group by helicopter out 20 or so miles and patrol back to the base. He, in no way, shape, or form, wanted to do this. As they were flying in the helicopter, Richard Nixon was on the radio telling the American people that we will never invade Cambodia. My friend was looking at a map and realized they were in Cambodia now, and pretty soon the helicopter was dropping them off and leaving them there. They had about 25 miles to head back to base. He gathered his charges up and told them they were sneaking back and to keep their guns down and signal our intentions. He said not to engage the enemy unless absolutely necessary. That worked, and they saw lots of Cambodians doing the same thing. They just slipped by each other with a quick nod of the head. They lived to tell about it, but my friend was scarred to his bones. I lived with him in an old farmhouse filled with mice after he returned from Vietnam. Don and I rented a room from Paul, and Paul couldn't kill a mouse after Vietnam. No, really. He would catch them and run them out to the barn, but kill them? No way. Don and I would laugh as the mouse always beat him back to the house. We eventually had to move because of all the mice. I returned to college that fall, 1973, and I cooked up an idea to get out of the dorm after Christmas. If you were a part-time student, you could live off campus, but I had to be full-time to get Social Security. Someone told me to go part-time to drop out of the dorm and then walk over to Warner Hall into registration and pick up the rest of your classes. This was before computers, so there was no real-time anything. It worked like a charm, and my new friend and I rented a half a house for the following winter semester. I asked my new friend what town she was from, and she said Rockford. I asked her, where's Rockford? And she said it was down by Grand Rapids. Then I asked her, which side of Grand Rapids? And she replied that it depended on which way you were coming into town. Our wheelhouses were pretty far apart, but we were off campus, and that's all that counted. We fixed up the house real cute, and she went off and got a puppy. I love puppies, so I was pretty happy. It was the cutest ball of fluff. It was a small golden retriever type. It pooped all over the house, and my roommate was grossed out and didn't want to pick up the poop. Not my dog. I wasn't cleaning up after it either, and was unimpressed with her inability to handle the poop, and quickly grew tired of the puppy. The puppy continued to poop and pee everywhere. Next, she took the puppy next door and set it down near a larger, older dog. The puppy ran between the front legs, startling the older dog, which snapped at the puppy, biting its neck hard. This did not kill the puppy. It just paralyzed it on one side. She brought the puppy home in a box crying. She decided to take the puppy to the vet, thinking he could fix it. I was thinking the vet would keep the puppy. Nope. She was still carrying the puppy around in a box when she got home. This went on for days. She fed the puppy with an eyedropper, and it was looking worse and worse by the day. I was feeling really sorry for the thing when she asked me to babysit while she went to class. I told her I would do that, and then to the puppy I whispered, "Say bye-bye." This farm girl had it by now. I called the vet and explained the situation, and he told me to bring in the puppy and he would keep it. I thanked him profusely and carried the puppy to the car. I sang little songs to him as I drove him to the vet. The vet took the puppy, did not charge me, and I headed home. Now, I didn't really contemplate telling my roommate her puppy was dead. Actually, I was just pretty excited about the whole puppy saga being over. I should have thought this through a little more. When my roommate walked in the door, I realized the task at hand, and I blurted out, "Your dog is dead. Your dog died. I took it to the vet for you. I'm sorry." I hugged her. I left as soon as I could possibly leave. City people don't handle death like us country folk. At least I didn't tell her to get back to work.